Hello and welcome to the Wholistically PsycEd podcast. I'm your host, Mariah Choate, a nationally certified school psychologist turned stay-at-home mom who now has the freedom to share what school districts don't want you to know after spending over a decade in the field of education. My goal is to help you learn all you need to know about special education that districts often gatekeep. Each episode will dive into how commonly laws are blatantly broken and tips on leveraging special education law to support best practice for students and teachers alike. We'll also feature interviews with parents and educators who are navigating these challenges head-on, along with those who are making strides to improve this broken system. This channel is for you, parents of students with suspected or diagnosed disabilities who already have or might need individualized education plans or 504 plans. It's also for teachers, counselors, and fellow school psychologists who are feeling the strain of a system that often leaves us feeling burnt out and overwhelmed. So if you're ready to learn, advocate, and empower yourself, child, or students, you're in the right place. Let's get started. Welcome back to Wholistically PsycEd. I'm your host, Mariah Choate, and today's episode is a really special one because we're diving into what it's like to sit on both sides of the IEP table with someone who knows it very well. I'm joined by Ryan Hogan, known on Instagram as World's Okayest School Psych, a Texas-based school psychologist, content creator, and most importantly, a dad to an autistic teen. Ryan brings a perspective that's personal, professional, funny, and of course, brutally honest, which is exactly what we need more of in this space. Ryan, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
I love your shirt, by the way, in my school psych era.
Yes, I know. Right. Yeah, and today's like the first kind of official day of my summer break because my last day was Friday, then it was the weekend. So now this is like the first work day that I'm off. So it's very exciting.
Happy summer to you. You deserve
Yes.
it. All right, so first things first, let's start off with your background. For those who might not know you yet, can you share a bit about your journey, just how you became a school psychologist and how being a parent of an autistic child may have shaped that path?
Yeah, I mean, I became a school psychologist first. My child was born after. But I've always felt like I had a gift of working with children. Like in high school and college, I did the YMCA summer camps and after school care program. And then when I was in college, I was kind of like a psychology major, right? So what does that mean? Psychology is so broad. And it was so stressful, like trying to figure out how I can refine that, make it more specific. And I was talking to my academic advisor, and basically he's like, you do like working with kids. I know that. And you like having summers off. So, school psychology. And I'm like, you know what? That sounds pretty good. And so,
Wow.
yeah, that's kind of like, so it was, around my, sophomore year of college that I went that route. There was almost a little bit of a detour, though. After I graduated, I was dating a girl, and she went on a scuba diving trip in Austin, Texas, right? And someone in that class, on that team, was a nurse and a supervisor at a children's psychiatric facility in one of the children's hospitals in the area, and offered me a job. Right. So I was already accepted to graduate school, but then I could just go straight to working. And that really sounded appealing, even though in the long run, I would make more money as a school psych. Right. But it just sounded nice to start working right away. But so I got that job and moved from, because I'm from Houston. So moved from Houston to Dallas where the job was located. And it didn't work out. I'll just leave it at that. And went to Abilene Christian University, and I called them up, and they still had a spot open for me. So, and that was like late July. So I was able to divert and go to graduate school. But also I have a stepsister who has Down syndrome. So I kind of grew up around children with special needs. And, every now and then I would eat with them at lunch at school, and I was around for birthday parties, and just, she's a lot of fun. She's very sassy. She has an attitude. You don't mess with her. But, we just, that was a lot of fun. So basically everything was pointing in that direction always. And then, yes, I had my own child with special needs.
Yeah, I was just going to say, so 4 or 5 years into being a school psychologist, you had your son.
Yeah.
And then how soon was he diagnosed?
He was officially diagnosed at about almost 3, but he was about 2 years, 10 months around there. Of course, we started having concerns before then, and, got him into speech therapy. So it was probably around 18 months that I, really started to notice or be concerned that there was something different, that he had differences. And actually, even though I'm a school psychologist, and I say this to anyone in our field, you wear your parent hat first, right? And you always need support of friends and family, but also experts. Even though you are an expert in the field, when it comes to your own child, sometimes you can't see things as clearly, so you still have to rely on professionals, on, providers, experts, therapists, whatever, even though you are one yourself. So, I was kind of like in denial a little bit, because there's a window for development, right? So if he's not talking, well, it's okay. Like, he may start talking on the late end or start speaking in sentences later, but it's going to happen. But I mean, it was my dad and stepmom who pulled me to the side one day and were like, we're really concerned about Reed's development. That it wasn't even that pleasant of a conversation, because we gave them pushback, but eventually we got him into speech therapy. He got early intervention, of course. And then it actually took the speech pathologist to recommend further testing. And, so we did that. Ever since he's been diagnosed, I'm a school psychologist, but it's actually been my wife who's been the most aggressive and intense about getting him the best treatment, best therapy, things like that. Like, because back in 2012 or 13, when he was diagnosed, there was not an ABA clinic on every corner like there is now. They're very, very rare. Even any type of therapy, it was just more rare. But she found one. It was like on a kind of in a rural area, like, they had horses and stuff like that. And it was pretty cool. But so got him into therapy right away. Got him treatment right away, starting at age 2.5. So, yeah.
Yeah. So he's had an IEP ever since like that age, and then he just...
Oh, yeah. His IEP started at 3. Like, we didn't start him in public school until his kindergarten year. We didn't do because we did the outside therapy, the outside ABA, but, but then he started kindergarten. That didn't go so well. And so we pulled him out of school for a year, put him in ABA again, and then put him back in school after that.
And do you feel like your perspective shifted a lot as you were a practitioner already, and then your son was going through the assessment himself and going through the therapies himself and getting his own IEP? Do you feel like that shifted your perspective as you were a practicing school psychologist?
I mean, yeah, there's no way it can't. I mean, anyone's life experience, regardless of what it is going to shift your perspective. And I think everyone, goes through something. Some people, you have typical developing kids, but maybe there's a health issue, or maybe, you went through something yourself, or you had a sibling with special needs. But I mean, so everyone, is coming in with a different perspective. But yeah, it definitely shifted my perspective. It just, I was able to, for one, just, I feel like we're all understanding and we all try to have empathy and compassion, but it became more real, more genuine at that point, and I could directly relate to what other parents were experiencing, even when it comes to having conversations with parents or giving recommendations and looking at IEP and supports. I find myself pulling from my knowledge as a parent and as a school psych, because there's just some things that as a school psych, you go to graduate school and then you start your internship and you learn so much from that because you have to be thrown into the field to learn. Same as being a parent of a child with special needs, like being thrown into that, you're going to learn even more, right? Even more than what graduate school, could possibly teach you, just living it, having that lived experience. So yeah, definitely it shifted my perspective. I was going to say, I wouldn't say dramatically, but I mean, because I've always tried to connect. I've always tried to have the empathy or see things from their perspective. But yeah, it did. I'm not saying you need to have a child with special needs to be a good professional, but it can't help but make you a stronger one anyways, I mean, but all of our lived experiences, like, make us better professionals. I think we pull from all our own experiences and whatever we go through, because no one has a perfect polished life. So
you have been kind of on both sides of that IEP team table. What do you wish more school teams understood about what it's like to be that parent in that room?
It's I can only speak to how I feel as a school psych and a parent, okay? And I know nowadays there's a lot of meetings virtually and everything like that, but I'm just going to give the example of an in-person meeting. When I have my ARD meetings, I'm guessing they're all a little bit more organized and professional and on top of it, because you know who I am, school psych. So, but anyway, when I walk into the room, everyone is already seated, the AP or the administrator, the teachers, everyone, the related service providers. And I just walk in and it feels intimidating. And I'm a school psych. And for the past 6 years, I've worked in my kid's school district. So, if I feel intimidated in my own school district and I'm a school psych, I can imagine how a regular parent feels, right? I really want other school psychs and other people in our field to hear this. Like, sometimes parents come in and you may feel like, oh, they're going to be difficult. They seem uptight. They seem tense. They seem kind of short. That's kind of like anxiety, right? Like, they don't know what to expect. They're sizing up the room, so, I mean, we need to make them comfortable, and let them know, like, we're on their side. Like, we're a team. This is a committee. Like I said, if I'm feeling intimidated, I could just imagine how a typical parent feels.
I've had this so much with parents that I've helped. How am I going to formulate the words where I sound like I know what I'm talking about? Because all these people are experts. So I want to make sure I'm asking the right questions, right? So yeah, you might not always have a parent that is assuming worst intentions with the
kids. Yeah, I mean, it shouldn't be on the parent to, like, come in and be friendly and, cheerful. If they're not, that's still okay. They likely will warm up once they become comfortable and trust you and feel that you have their child's best interest, at heart. So that was just a big shock to me, like how I felt in those situations. But even on Zoom too, because I've done ARDS for my son via Zoom remotely and in person. And it's the same thing. I mean, you see everyone's faces there. And also as a school psych, I know that, you know, you want, like, we as professionals and teachers in the school, like, we want to be thorough and we want to have a good meeting for the kid and cover all the areas, right? But also, I know that, like, everyone has something else to do that day, right? You know, and everyone has an agenda that they have to get through. And there could be another meeting scheduled after yours. You don't want the parent to feel rushed. You don't want the parent to pick up on any nonverbal cues that you're ready for the meeting to be over. You just don't. Like, one of my friends who actually, he's a coworker, he started as an intern and then rose to being a SPED director. But he said something I'll never forget. He said, an IEP meeting is an untimed event. Okay? Mm-hmm. It's untimed. Like, so there's nothing in the law that says it has to be an hour or it has to all happen within the teacher's planning period.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not in the law.
It takes as long as it takes. That's the thing. Now, there is a need for one person, you know, to keep things on the agenda. I get that. And then there's some things like parents might bring up that's not necessarily always an IEP related issue. Like, oh, I want him to have recess on this playground and not this playground. You know, like that's an administrative issue. But so I get that. There does need to be some facilitating and keeping things on track. But when you're on that track, though, it's an untimed event. And you don't want the parent thinking that you're in a rush at all. Like, it just kind of just settle in. It takes as long as it takes. But usually, if you're thorough, if you're prepared, if, you know, you go in there with a positive attitude and want to cover all areas and answer all questions and address all concern, it goes faster anyways. Sometimes when you're trying to be in a rush or short, you know, then sometimes that can make it take longer, you know, because then the parent gets uncomfortable, upset, has more questions, has more concerns. So
yeah. I don't know if you feel this way, but like for me, it depended on my rapport with the parent. So like I would get calls all the time from the parent when I wasn't in the IEP meeting, and they would ask different questions and I would email back and forth, and they felt the comfortability to do that. So they didn't feel the need to like hold every question until that one IEP meeting, right? So I think that is helpful as professionals to make sure that you're establishing that rapport.
Oh, yeah.
The parent doesn't feel like, okay, I can't. Like, I literally had a parent one time tell me, oh, the school psych before you, like, I wasn't allowed to email them or call them, like, at the school. And I was like, oh, you mean like their private number? And she's like, no, like I'd call the school and they'd say, I'm sorry, you need to email our administrator first, and then our administrator will, you know, send an email to the school psychologist with whatever you're concerned about. And I was like, that's so interesting. I get like school psychs are busy, but if you do establish that rapport and communication throughout the process, I think it's so much easier when you get to the IEP meeting where it's like, okay, we're going to talk about goals and services and eligibility, right? It's like very specific.
Yeah, if I can't find it, then I'll just tell you. But it's basically a letter of recommendation that my SPED director wrote me like all the way back in 2014. You know, because I'm so old. Let's see. She said, Ryan worked closely with me on a challenging case last year. So this was, you know, several years ago. But without a doubt, the positive relationship that he formed with the parent and the student was the main reason the mother chose not to pursue unnecessary legal action. That's powerful to me, right? I mean, that's big. It's apparent that Ryan knew the student very well and understood his emotional challenges, you know, and going on and on. But that's the line right there, man. I mean, because I get it. Administrators have the whole school, you know, that they're in charge of. Teachers have whole classrooms. We have a sizable caseload, but it's smaller caseload. We really need to be the ones establishing a strong rapport, with these parents and these families and, the children too. I remember this parent, and on the outside, she seemed very difficult, and that would come across as being just very uncooperative or defensive, but I knew it was anxiety. I knew all of it was rooted in anxiety, and that's what, I mean, sometimes that's what we see with our kids, their behaviors are rooted in something emotional related like anxiety, but it comes out as acting out, not that I'm comparing a parent to a kid. I mean, but we all do that, so, but it was another part. Maybe it's that Virgo in me again. It was just my stubbornness. Like we are not going to do process with this parent, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that doesn't happen. As far as having a relationship with this mom, like this is not going to happen because it will not end well.
That is so cool. I don't know how it's treated in your district, but like in my previous district, and we're in Southern California, right? So we're in a difficult area, like probably an hour north of LA.
Yeah.
It's very much treated as like you, the school psychologist, like you better make sure we're staying away from lawsuits. Like that is your responsibility type of like kind of that pressure. And like some of it's unspoken, some of it's spoken very clearly. And it is interesting because it's like, how do you approach the parent that's super angry and is like ready to get a lawyer? How do you approach that parent before they've even met those steps, right? And I think it's being super proactive, being really empathetic, right? Being really understanding, doing everything so far as it belongs to you to like meet the needs, not to just like give them everything they want, but like to be very clear in your communication, be really intentional about the relationship building, not just with the kid, but with the parent, with the team, right? Like, I think that's awesome that you said it was your SPED director wrote that.
Yeah. This was 11 years ago now, so you can see how much it meant to me. I don't know if it's like you say in Southern California that there's all this pressure on school psychs and school psychs alone to stop unnecessary legal action or to keep us out of lawsuits or whatever, due process. I don't feel that burden is entirely on us. It just depends on the situation, if it's evaluation related, but sometimes it's not evaluation related. And if it is, and this is kind of sidetracking here, but like I tell people when it comes to like due process and stuff, and, knock on wood, I don't even think I've been in a due process. I've just been in mediation. But maybe it's because I'm so stubborn. Like I just will not go to due process. But so definitely mediation, definitely, advocates and attorney. I've been through all that, but nothing has gone to that extent. But I just, make sure that you're doing clean, ethical work. And I mean, if you are, then the chips are going to just fall where they may. Like at some point, I feel at least I can do it. We as school psychs, like if I do my job thoroughly and ethically and all that, and there's still issues, I feel like at that point I'm turning it over to the SPED administration team. Like, right. Not that I cut off communication with the parent, but like I've taken this as far as I possibly can. I don't know what to, I don't know what else to do. So I kind of, let them make call the shots at that point. Now, I mean, they're always calling the shots, but I fully release it to them. So
I wonder if it's different. Like you say you're in Texas, which I already know, like Texas is a whole different ballgame.
Oh yeah. Sometimes. It's weird. Yeah.
Like, I should say in my experience, the school psychologist role was very much administrative. So like you were not only facilitating the team, but you were also making sure the teacher was doing what they were required to be doing,
Yeah. Yeah.
right? Like general education, special education, you were making sure, like honestly, APs were like AP or, principal, whatever. They're in the meeting, but they're like camera off or like, hey, I'm going to pop in for 5 minutes and leave,
So
right? Like,
so it's kind of the same. It just depends on what district you're in.
okay.
Like, because in Texas we also have educational diagnosticians. And in many, many districts, I would say most, they're kind of like the queen of SPED for the school,
Hmm.
not the school psych. So it kind of like, though, frees us up to do more of the social, emotional, behavioral stuff, the psychological stuff. And they're doing more of that, like you said, administrative side. But yeah, I mean, it's either the school psych or the diagnostician is making sure that but I would say, though, at least in my district, that it's kind of a collaboration with the diag, our school psych, but really the diag, and an administrator. Like, there's always one administrator, and one of their duties are special education. So they're over everything SPED. So really, and then also we have case managers,
Hmm.
that those are special education teachers. But each special education teacher on campus has their own caseload. So they're in charge of, getting all the collecting everything, so I would say it's a team effort. I think, you need everyone to be really good and sharp and on top of things in their role, though. So yeah,
Yeah.
but I certainly not for me, though. I don't have that burden of doing that administration stuff. So I'm very thankful for that.
Okay, so I know you've shared very openly, very often about, I mean, I don't want to say political views, even though like it kind of always comes down to politics, like education is very political,
Yeah,
right?
school psych is
Yeah.
political. You can't get out of it.
You
Yeah.
can't get out of it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm not trying to make it like mainly political, but like at the end of the day, education is political, right? So if you had the power to, right? Like what would you overhaul about how we do IEPs, how we approach special education in general, if you had the power to be able to do that?
I saw that question. You did email me that. I was like, man, that's a big question.
It is, yeah.
And I, because overhaul IEPs, like that's not like the Virgo in me, like, you take everything apart and, so it's like that would take forever to actually answer that. But I mean, it just comes down to like the basics at first. I mean, we just need adequate funding, like the school districts, teachers, provide school psychologists. Like, I mean, we need, there's pay, but then there's funding for special education. And there's just more support and acknowledgement from our lawmakers too. I feel like
Mm,
Texas, there's a lot of like, I don't know if hostility is the right word, but it's not as, the legislator is not as public education friendly as some other states, right?
mm,
So, I mean, like just for example, a budget had not passed since 2019 for education funding at all. Like it's been stagnant, and school districts have been, making a lot of deep cuts, including consolidating campus, closing campuses, consolidating campuses. Like even my district, like this year, we just closed both of our early learning center programs
wow.
or schools. So we had two early learning center schools, and that just housed our pre-K programs and then our special education preschool programs too. So now all of those are going to go to the elementary campuses,
Wow.
and then you see things like we have a wellness clinic in our district. So it's basically like a doctor's office, but just for district employees, and then children who are on the insurance plan of district employees. Anyway, that's closing now, because of cuts and stuff. So, but I mean, it's just different things like that. But part of the reason this was held up, this funding was stalled, and we did not have the resources we needed, was because of vouchers, which is a whole nother topic in itself. But, basically in our legislative session 2 years ago, they would not pass an education budget because there was no agreement on vouchers. So basically the governor and those pro voucher people said, fine, you don't pass vouchers, we're not increasing funding,
And you mean school vouchers in terms of parents get the decision to take their child to whatever school that they're
money for private schools,
not public education, but you're essentially taking that money and funneling it to private education, charter schools.
And some schools already have voucher systems, and we do now. Well, I mean, it passed, so our voucher, it just passed. The school vouchers did. So the school funding bill passed too, since the vouchers passed. But the vouchers start not next year, but the school year after that. So it's still something I'm not familiar with, or won't be that familiar with until a little bit down the road, and how that's all got to work out, and how that will look like and affect our jobs and stuff like that. But that's what I mean. Arizona has them, and I know some other, I think Utah, Florida, some other states do too. But anyway, so I would just say, it starts with that.
I was going to say, along with funding, I wonder if it's not necessarily just more funding, but just also the appropriation of what is being funded, right? I think
because I think the Department of Education now, I hear they're looking at a change in how they distribute their funds, and I can't think of the right wording for it, but basically there's not going to be a requirement that these funds are spent on special education programs, and that's concerning.
That's very concerning.
Yeah,
if you think about our budget, anyways, with education, special education takes up majority of those budgets, right? Because you're looking at personnel, you're looking at staffing, you're looking at services, right? So just naturally, and I've spoken with many parents that feel the struggle of my child has special needs, but just because yours doesn't mean that we as a community just well, that doesn't affect me, so I don't need to vote that through. And it's as a society, we absolutely need to value supporting the vulnerable population.
And that's a problem with the vouchers for me, is that I get maybe for some families it may be beneficial, but with my child, and Texas did increase the amount that a family will get for a special education child, right? And that's great. But the thing is, no matter how much you give me, there's just not a private school that exists that will be able to serve my child. If they're just not one. You could give me $100,000. It doesn't exist.
That's if they accept children with
and I think there's still some strings attached to vouchers and stuff like that. So it's not even a given that all private schools will even accept vouchers, or accept children with disabilities, they may, maybe if there's a learning disability or something, or behavior issues, but there's just not a price. So, my concern is my son, then his only option is public school. They have to serve him, but now do they lack the resources and funding needed to do that? But I do want to go back to that question though, because another answer I have is how would I overhaul it? I mean, the schools also and, this could be also related to funding, but they need the flexibility to serve all kids. And what I mean by that is, like, in my experience, I've seen schools change like models. They'll go from, like, do you know like content mastery is, to where they will pull a kid out to a separate setting, like, so they'll receive instruction in class, and then to do independent work, they'll go to content mastery and receive more one-to-one support. And then they will switch from that and go to like a more inclusion model. So the special education teachers will go in the classroom to work with the kid, or push in. And then they will go to like some co-teach programs, where, every classroom has a general ed and special education teacher, things like that. But it just seems like they don't have the staffing or the ability to do all of it. I would really like to see all of it. Like, if a kid needs content mastery, they need content mastery. If they need a resource class, they need resource class. If they need inclusion, they need inclusion. They need co-teach, they need co-teach, And, like, really, when you're developing an IEP, and this again was in my previous district, and another person said this, and I forget the exact wording, but he was basically saying, like, when you're developing an IEP in the R meeting, you can't think about what staffing you have on campus or what you have available. You have to put in the IEP what the kid needs. That's it. It's closed thinking. Like, you can't think, how can we fit this kid into our system? No, you put in the IEP what the kid needs, and then you got to make it work. But
I think part of that, I love that you just said that, because so many educators aren't told that. They're just told, this is our system, so let's see where this kid fits in. And they don't even think that it's anything other than, like, oh no, this is how we've always done it. This is what we need to do. This is like,
and I actually I mean, even though I'm a school psych, so I say this to other school psychs and professionals. I warned you I was going on like some little rabbit trails here. But so I experienced that myself. When my son was transitioning from 5th grade to 6th grade, I won't try to say like the position of the person, but there were one or two people that were basically like, what my son was receiving in elementary school, this won't be available to him in middle school, And I don't know, just in my experience, though, even as a school psych, the setup of special programs, and I'm not saying this now, I'm just saying I've seen this. The set up like special programs and what's available to kids, and the services and supports they receive at the elementary level, and then they go to secondary, and it's just like it's like not the same at all. Like it goes downhill like at the secondary. Now that's not.
Yeah, you get to high school and it's even. I know you're saying secondary. I'm assuming you're meaning like the transition from elementary to middle. But like
so when we say secondary, I guess that's more of a common lingo here, but secondary means like middle school and high school. Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So like,
because in our area, it's even like, I feel like it's further and further away from like meeting the needs of the child of like, it's like really handhold. Middle school, it's like, those supports are still there. And then it's like high school, like, good luck to you.
Well, and there's also a sense of like they want to some extent, there's even a sense of like trying to keep the kids more separated.
Yeah.
Like because of like safety issues, because I mean, my son might elope some, or maybe he has a meltdown every now and then, but now, you go from a kindergartner having these behaviors, or a 3rd grader to versus an 11th grader. So it does become, there is some safety physical concerns there, but I think excluding them is not, the answer. You still have to practice inclusion, but so anyway, going from 5th grade to 6th grade, I was just so unhappy that I ended up getting an advocate myself. So I'm a school psychologist, but I still hired an advocate. if anything, it was just to let the school know, like, I'm serious. I mean business. So I hired an advocate in my own district. My son's fifth grade teacher, who was not the problem. We were talking on Facebook the other day, and she has her own child who has profound autism, and she is a teacher in a structured like learning program, like kind of designed for children with autism. And she said to me, because I praised her on something, and then this is what she said. I'm reading it. She said, "Our boy Reed made me a better teacher. He challenged me in the best way, and it was a blessing to have him with us. I miss him every day. I was thinking about him and all the things we did." And here's the big part right here. But the truth is that it was also possible because you both, talking about me and my wife, you both were always there advocating for him and supporting us. I don't think I ever said this to you, but I surely said it to my admin and other parents. You showed me that I needed to advocate more for my son. That even if I am a school district employee, I have the right and duty to do it. You showed me that he deserves a mom, that her son deserves a mom that will advocate for what's best for him, no matter how others will perceive me. And
Sweet.
yeah. And I'm grateful for that, and I thank you, So yeah, it's
What a compliment.
I know, right? I remember compliments. See, like I'm pulling up these old compliments like they're receipts.
Yeah, that is so sweet, though. I think, especially being in the field, it's so difficult because you understand both sides. You understand that the parent that comes in that is, I don't know how you like experience it, but like cursing down the team and like has to get escorted out of the office type thing, right? Like super, super angry or aggressive or threatening.
Yeah.
Like, we've all experienced that, right? But also understanding that, like, at the root of it, I love how you said that before of like there might be anxiety and it comes out in other ways, like anger, behaviors, whatever.
Right.
The root of it is like you care so deeply about your child and you want what's best for them and you want to assume best intentions from the team. But when that's not necessarily always, not necessarily just best intentions, but also, like you said, the flexibility, creativity to like meet their unique needs. Even as a school psychologist, right? Like you might need outside help in terms of not going to due process, right? Like you're not just going to throw down and be like, let's go to court, but really making sure that you're doing everything you can to like ensure that you're doing what your son needs.
Yeah.
And that might not look like the school model that's provided or like,
right.
Oh, that's all we can offer here. But I love that you said that your old coworker or whatever,
Yeah.
like, that shouldn't even be a factor when you're sitting in your IEP meetings. It shouldn't be, okay, how many staff do we have in that room? Okay, they're not, we're at ratio with that one. Okay, let's think of this classroom. It's like, no, it has to be your
or just, no, we don't provide that service here. No, we don't have that here. I mean, and I'm not saying things that like something like that's just far out there, like, do you offer equestrian therapy or, like, yeah.
It does get asked, right?
Right. But so that's not what I'm talking about. Like, I'm talking about basic services, but the schools always have their, like, our districts always have their narrow model of what they do this year and what they provide, like, I mean, like, I've even seen, like, they offer pull-out social skills, right? Like, for special ed students if it's in their IEP. But now we're not going to do that anymore. We're going to push in social skills. But how does that even look like? That doesn't make any sense. So like, and then so at all the annual IEP meetings, they're taking out that service because they're not going to do that anymore. But wait a second, you don't have to agree to that. Like, I think you need. So I would say, yeah, going way back to that question, as far as the overhaul, like there needs to be a lot more flexibility and a lot more creativity. We need to offer like a broad range. I just want the schools to have the willingness, but also the ability and the funding to offer the broad range of services,
Yeah, I think that's so key.
Yeah.
And yeah, like having the funding to make it possible, right?
Yeah, and the
But yeah,
support and
that's
backup.
good.
Yeah, and teachers need to feel supported and heard, and all that. But
Speaking out about a lot of things that you're passionate about, which I absolutely love, like that's why I was drawn to your account. But I want to talk about what inspired you to start that account and what has the response been like from other either professionals, coworkers, or other parents that have found you online?
that's funny because I was working. I evaluated a student this year. It was a reevaluation, and it was actually a student that I DNQ'd.
Hmm.
Not because the student doesn't have a disability, just there's not an educational need. So for those listening that don't know, like when we do our evaluations, when we're looking at a special education eligibility, it's like a two-pronged approach, right? Does the child have the disability, but also is there an educational need to receive special education services? So you're asking like, what does this child need that cannot be accessed in general education? But anyway, so parent agreed, it was fine. But anyway, that mom, she emailed me a couple weeks later and said, "Is this you?" And she like screenshotted my account. I'm like, oh no. I'm like, I don't know. Is it me? I'm like, that depends on how you feel about it. But no, she ended up being like really cool and like loves my account. So like I always worry about that, but I was like, oh, this is my worst nightmare. But no, no, so she's good. But yeah, so what inspired me to start it was it's just like a coping strategy, like the memes, like the funny stuff, like the serious stuff, the political stuff. That's all I would say kind of fairly new because like it started as just like memes, just funny stuff, just decompress and just self-deprecating humor about me or about us in general. Sometimes I target other people, like I'll make fun of OTs, I'll make fun of BCBAs, but it's all in good fun, right? Or like at work sometimes if I get mad or if I get upset, I just channel that into making a meme about it, like this
Yeah.
one teacher account. I noticed like she put up in her story like, sorry that I haven't been posting a lot lately. I'm really been happy this school year. I'm in a new school or a new district or something like that. But because I'm happy, I don't have a lot of content to post. So but anyways, but I have like, even if a lot of memes, like some people think, oh, I'm posting about something that happened today. I could be. Sometimes I post about something that happens that day, but sometimes I'm posting about something that happened 10 years ago. You never know. I don't always say it, but so when it comes to like these relatable memes and reels, it could be something current or something far, from the past, but it's still applicable today. But anyway, so on Facebook, I was kind of like a social media, like not really hip or with it. I just had a Facebook account, a personal Facebook account. I didn't have Instagram, TikTok, or anything. But I was, following a couple school psych pages and I would post memes to that. Right. So I just kind of started making memes and posting memes to that, and they were well received. And I was doing that for a while, and I kept thinking in the back of my head, I'll just start my own page, but that sounds like too much work. I don't want to do it. And then like one Saturday, it was like the weekend before Thanksgiving in 2022 on a whim. I was like, you know what? I'm just going to open an Instagram account and see where it goes. And that's what I did. And, it just kind of slowly grew and took off from there. And it's been great. I mean, for the most part, the responses from other school psychs are awesome. I mean, they respond most like when they just feel seen, it's relatable, they feel heard. Like when I was a baby school psych, it was back before really social media and Instagram. I mean, it was kind of around, but in more of a archaic form. But, I felt very isolated. Like no one else is going what I'm going through, or no one else is thinking what I'm thinking, or experiencing what I'm experiencing, or having the type of anxiety that I'm having. And then when I start posting these memes, people are like, oh my gosh, this is me. Like, I can't believe this. I can't believe someone else is feeling this or thinking this or experiencing this. Like, you don't know if someone's got to relate to something or not. You just put it out there and see. And most of the time they do relate to it. So I love that we have like social media. I mean, there's pros and cons of social media, but I love that we're able to have this community where, it's humor, but also resources, because there's some pages that are more dedicated to helping others and resources and things like that. And then, there's some like every personality, school psych personality is a little different, and offers something different. And then like, there's some pages that are just purely just memes, and that's all they are. It's just funny memes, nothing else, So and mine's just a little bit of a mix, like, the memes, the parent stuff, the politics stuff, all that. So I'm kind of all over the
I
place.
love it.
Yeah.
I absolutely love your page. For anyone that hasn't followed, they need to follow you. And it's
Thank
at
you.
World's, yeah, you're welcome. At World's Okayest School Psych.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say that. Yeah, if anyone hasn't followed you, they should. Even, like, quite honestly, even if they're not a school psychologist, even a parent that maybe their kid has an
Oh,
anxiety, I
yeah.
think it's so eye-opening. Even a teacher, right? Like, anyone, I've had so many teachers be like, what does a school psychologist even do? Like, I never even see you guys
Yeah.
on my campus, right? I think it's so helpful, like you said, to show that
I try to post
relatability.
content that everyone can enjoy,
Right.
regardless if you're not a school psych, but you're still in our field, you know, or or if you're not even there. There's people that we follow each other, and they're not in any related field at all, but we
Yeah.
still enjoy each other's content. And I post a lot of stuff to my stories that have nothing to do with the field. It's just funny, it just kind of
Yeah.
reflects my personality. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, so I try to have something there for everyone.
And I'm sure you feel this way, but it's very cathartic to be able to
Yes,
just
very
like
cathartic.
yeah, like just get all of those like emotions and like humor out there of like I feel like at the root of all the humor is like that might be a truth down there, right? So I think it's very cathartic for
Yeah.
me and I'm sure it is for you too.
And someone like sometimes I'll post like a text thread to my stories because someone will text me like, "Is this a meme about me? Like, is this about what happened yesterday?" I'll be like,
Oh my
"No, yes," you know.
gosh. Well, Ryan, thank you so much for being so real and for the work that you're doing both online and offline. Your honesty helps so many parents and professionals feel seen. Before we go, is there any last advice that you'd like to give to parents or educators, anyone in the field, or anyone that might be impacted by the special education process?
I mean, they're just going to be ups and downs, So when you become frustrated or don't feel seen or just feel like something's not working out, it's just really persistence is the key. Um, and that basically that stick to itiveness, like as a parent, if I need to be like, I like to be the chill, laid back parent, have a good rapport and vibe with the teachers and staff. But if I need to be relentless or difficult, I will. So it's like, I would say like, whether you're a school psych are a parent, what both roles, don't be afraid to advocate. That's what we do. We're advocates. So do not be afraid to advocate, and do not be afraid of, you want to be civil, obviously, and respectful, but I mean, you're going to step on toes when you advocate. It's going to happen. So do it. That's our role. So that's, I guess, my main advice for both roles.
I love that. Thank you so much. I had one supervisor tell me one time when I was dealing with some legal issues at my previous district, and they were like, you need to recognize that you're not just an employee for the district, and you're not just like there for doing whatever the team is saying necessarily. Like, yes, it's a team decision, but you need to make sure that whatever decisions are being made or that you're, putting forward, it's for the best interest of the child. Like your focus needs to remain on the child.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then also, I mean, just for your own protection, my livelihood in this career comes through my license. Like, because some states you're certified, I guess, through the state education agency, but we're actually licensed by the Texas State Board of Examiners or Psychologists or whatever. Like, so we have the same licensing board that licensed psychologists do, the LPCs do, stuff like that, right? So we're licensed, and it's called a licensed specialist in school psychology. The most important thing, though, is that we're protecting our license. So I don't care about making the district happy. I care about the kid and their best interest, but I also care about my license and not losing that and doing what's ethical and legal, So
Thank you so much for tuning in to Holistically Psyched. If today's conversation resonated with you, please share this episode, leave a review, and make sure to follow on Instagram. Remember, the best teams are the ones where everyone feels heard, especially parents and especially the kids that we're here to support.
Thanks so much for joining me today. I would be so grateful if you could share this with anyone you can think of who works in education or happens to have a child with disabilities. If this was helpful for you, make sure to subscribe so you can hear some of the crazy and amazing stories of what is really going on behind the scenes in public education. Until next time, remember, in the famous words of Maya Angelou, each child belongs to all of us, and they bring us a tomorrow in direct relation to the responsibility we have shown to them.